Growing up, every year, my family would spend our summer vacation at our cabin. The summer of my junior year of high school, I used to babysit at this rather large house. The kids were about 4 and 2. The first time I went, my sister came along to help. Walking into the house the first time gave me an uneasy feeling, but I never could quite put my finger on it. Of all the summers we'd been going to the lake, this was the first time we'd known anyone living in this particular house. As the night went on, the parents were gone from about 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. Things started to get weird. My sister was sitting at the dining room table, and I had taken both of the kids to the bathroom. About a minute later, she runs up to me and the kids and swears she heard footsteps run up behind her and suddenly stop. When she turned around, she said she saw nothing and got super freaked out and ran to me. Even scarier, she said the footsteps followed her as she ran, picking up speed and almost catching up to her. I'm gonna be honest, that freaked me out quite a bit. The rest of that night, I still felt uneasy, but nothing happened to me. The next time I went to their house to babysit is when I experienced something paranormal for the first time in my life. I was playing with the kids in their playroom, and from the opposite side of the room, a toy fell out of their toy chest. Both kids were on my side of the room, and the toy chest was barely half full. We all saw it. Everyone was quiet, and I could sense the oldest becoming uneasy. I played it off, though, sharing an unprompted laugh, which made them laugh. Then, I put the kids to bed and just waited for the parents to get home. It was an agonizing couple of hours. I kept expecting something to jump out at me. The next couple of times babysitting after the second time were some of the most terrifying of my life. I'd hear footsteps upstairs when I was downstairs, and both of the kids would be with me. I'd see black shadows out of the corner of my eye quite often. It got to the point where lights would turn off and on by themselves, right in front of me. I could even hear the switch click. There was one specific time that I felt one of the children run up and grab the side of my leg, but there was no child when I looked down. I completely lost it after that incident. I called my mom, crying so she could help me get through the rest of the night. It may not sound awful to you guys, but to me, the fear had consumed my whole body. The final straw was when the 4-year-old got out of bed and started laughing at me. I asked him why he was laughing, and he just continued to laugh even harder and looked to the side of my face instead of directly at me. I had no desire to turn around, and I sent him back to bed. That was it for me. I knew something was in that house, and I never went back again. The parents were my dad's friends from work who had rented the house for that summer. After I officially quit, my dad told me about the many rumors that surrounded the house. He knew that they had gone through 4 nannies before we had even made it there. They paid very well, and that's why I kept going back initially, until it became too much. The best part about the story is after I stopped babysitting, the 4-year-old had woken up one night screaming and crying, telling his dad that he knew someone was in his closet. And when I heard about that incident, I never regretted my decision to stay the hell away from that house. I've never been a believer in the supernatural, but there are moments when you simply can't ignore the presence of certain things around you. Apologies if this story turns out to be a bit lengthy. I moved to a hostel for my studies, which happened to be located right next to a railway line, and the constant rattling noise of passing trains would always disturb us, shaking our windows and such. My room was on the 4th floor. I shared it with 2 other people. I distinctly remember that after about 3 or 4 months, my roommates and I began hearing a disturbing screeching sound during the night. At first, that's all it seemed to be, a screech. But one of my roommates mentioned that if you listened closely, It sort of sounded like the screeching of a woman, not a machine. Initially, we brushed it off. Sure, we'd all heard it, but we assumed it was just one of the girls staying in the hostel. However, as the nights went by, the sound continued, always at night. So much so that even the simple task of getting water became a dreaded one. I still had the courage to endure it, especially on those hot nights when water was a must. Though, I always felt as if someone was walking alongside me. The haunting experiences continued. One roommate ended up moving out, leaving just 2 of us, but that prompted me to move to a ground floor with a friend. I felt bad, but outside of offering my other roommate to join, I didn't really have a choice. I needed to get out of that room. I didn't know what awaited me there would leave a permanent mark on my memory. Every day, and I do mean every day, I would catch the sight of a lady standing in the corner of my room, quietly observing me. She never approached me, just watched. She'd almost always disappear the moment I tried to make eye contact. Otherwise, she was constantly in my peripheral vision. These encounters led to sleepless nights filled with lots of confusion and a sure sense of helplessness. I had no idea what to do or who to confide in. My old roommates had all but abandoned their rooms. My friend seemed to never be home, and the warden, well, they weren't initially any help either, not at first. I was stuck. Then, one night, I narrowly escaped a heart attack. As I was laying in bed, on the verge of falling asleep, I turned over and caught a glimpse of a small child sitting and staring at me. This was new. It was an unsettling sight, one that paralyzed me with fear. I eventually mustered the courage to reach out my hand, hoping it was just a hallucination. But to my horror, the child remained there. Finally, I decided to approach the warden again, this time sharing my experiences in full. Who cares if she thought I was crazy? Maybe she'd be forced to find me somewhere else to live. Ultimately, that's what I wanted. To my surprise, she responded with a calm understanding. She revealed that she herself was not a believer in such paranormal activities. She'd never experienced anything herself. However, she shared a haunting tale from the past. A train accident that claimed the lives of many and severely injured many more on the very same railway line behind the hostel. Since that tragedy, people had consistently reported similar encounters to the warden. She advised me to remain strong, not to let these experiences overpower me. The same advice she'd given others who she promised went on to enjoy their time in the hostel. So that summer, I took her advice. I stopped considering what I saw as scary, and instead, I looked at it as a glimpse into the past. Perhaps I was lucky. After all, not everyone gets to experience paranormal activity so vividly. But I do think that when a tragedy like that takes place, it's incredibly possible for spirits to wander. The woman remained in the corner of the room almost until I moved out. I also continued hearing screeching, but over time, I decided that it was the sound of a train on the tracks, combined with the sound of screaming. It sounds awful, I know, but when you're hearing these sounds nightly, you really can't help but dissect what they could be. Oddly enough, once I'd really identified what it was, I didn't hear it anymore. I never did see the little boy again, but I often wish that I would have had a different response when I first captured a glimpse of him. Possibly I scared him by appearing so afraid myself. Either way, I hope those spirits found peace, and if their peace was remaining in that hostel, I hope future guests since the 80s have been more welcoming.